So before we go through any of these examples, let's just review from last week. And I'm gonna utilize the sine curve as our example here. Remember kind of our standard form, y equals a sine. Now we write these equations, we're going to put the b outside of our parentheses. And again, it's going to be x plus or minus whatever the c value is, plus d. So just to do a quick review, what's a represent? Okay, so it's going to represent how high up or how low that the curve goes from the midline. So that's, or we call that the amplitude. The b value in front, that's telling us the interval of the curve. C is telling us the shift left or right. That's the plus or minus. If it's plus, it's shifting it left. If it's minus, it's shifting it right. And then the D value, again, could be plus or minus also. That's telling us the vertical shift up or down. Okay, now on all of these graphs, we're going to be writing both the sine and the cosine curve. So, I could substitute in here cosine in this also. Now, one of the other things I'll mention to you is on all of these, it's possible for us to have multiple answers depending on where you start. Does that make sense? Because if like on this curve, I could start at 0, but if I continue drawing the curve over here to the left, technically I could start over here at negative 2 pi. Does that make sense? So whenever we're writing our answers, just to make it pretty similar for all of us, make sure you're just going one period right or left of where the y-axis is. Does that make sense? Just to make it to where we're all kind of giving pretty similar answers. Again, it's not going to mean that you would be wrong if you went more than one period left or right. So let's start on this first one. The first one, we're just going to start with the sine curve. So as we go through the process here, what I would suggest you do is identify your different values. So let's start with finding a. What would be a in this first picture? Everybody agree a is 4? Okay, then we could find, or I think in these problems, the hardest value to identify is probably your b value. If you look at your period here, we know the period on this one, if I'm starting with the sine curve, I'm starting here at 0. Hopefully you agree that the period would be 2 pi. Everybody agree with that? So if I'm finding b, remember to find b is the interval. I take 2 pi divided by b. Well, to set this up, let's just go ahead. We're going to say 2 pi, which is the period, is equal to 2 pi divided by b. So I'm just going to set up a little proportion there to help me solve that. Well, if 2 pi is equal to 2 pi over b, what does b have to be here? It's just going to be 1. My c value is my shift left or right. For the sine curve, I'm not shifting left or right at all because I'm starting at 0. So c is just going to be 0 for that. And I'm not shifting up or down, so d is also going to be 0. So on this first one, if I'm writing my equation, y equals 4 sine b is 1, so I'm, we're not going to really write anything for that. It's just x plus 0 plus 0. So again, it's just y equals 4 sine of x. We're also going to write the cosine. So we're going to write both curves here on this. So again, we're still at 4. Now we're doing cosine. Again, the b value is 1. That's going to go out in front. Now to start on the cosine, remember the cosine is my U shape. So cosine, I'm actually shifting over here to this starting point here to the right. So I don't know if it helps you to draw in a little dotted line with where we're starting. But that would be a shift to the right. In this case, how far over are we shifting it? Pi halves. So it's going to be x minus pi halves. So that would be my equation for that curve. Okay, let's go to number 36. So on this one, again, we're going to identify our value. So A, hopefully you would say that A is 2. You notice if I'm starting at 0, from 0 to 1 full period on the cosine curve, I'm going all the way to, it looks like pi. So I'm going to say pi is equal to 2 pi divided by b. Well, if I solve that, I get pi times b equals 2 pi. And if I divide by pi, b is just going to be simply 2. Again, if I start with the cosine curve, my c value is 0 and my d value is 0. So I'm going to say here y is equal to 2 cosine. 2 goes out in front of the parentheses, x. Now for my sine curve, again, you'll notice on the sine curve here, I'm shifting over pi fourths. Also, hopefully you notice at pi fourths, I'm not going up first, I'm going down first. So that tells me that I have a reflection here. So minus, again, my amplitude is still 2. Our b value is still 2. I've shifted it over to the right pi fourths, so that would be x minus pi fourths. So let's go ahead and do a quick check here on 37. So hopefully you said that the amplitude was 3. Notice that 1 full period is 4 pi. So to find b, I'm going to do 4 pi equals 2 pi over b, which gets me a b value of 1/2. For the sine curve, c is 0, d is 0, because I'm starting at 0, 0. So I get y equals 3 sine of 1/2 x. Notice for the cosine curve, I'm actually shifting over here to pi. So that's going to change my cosine graph or equation to y equals 3 cosine of 1/2 times x minus pi. Again, no vertical shift, just a horizontal shift there.